Okay, well, greetings everybody in California and the rest of the world. This is our Monday morning, September 2nd, Google Hangout on Air. For the new students here, that will become very meaningful of what that is. You'll get used to it. We want you to take it to your next place of employment because it's a very powerful tool. Today, we're lucky enough to have a guest speaker who we've been trying to get for, how long, Richard? About a month to come in. I've met Richard, I think, about a year ago at the Italian American Club. Richard is an attorney. He's a partner at a law firm of Kemp Jones Coulthard here in town. He's been practicing for 26 years in Las Vegas.
23 in Las Vegas.
Okay, are you a member of the California Bar?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and the California Bar. He holds the highest rating possible in legal ability and ethics. Served as a Nevada Supreme Court settlement judge and an administrative law judge. Plus, he was elected twice by the lawyers in Clark County to represent them on the State Bar Board of Governors, the organization that supervises the legal system in Nevada. Richard Scotti is also running for district court judge. And around this area, I think over on, what is it, Bonneville and 7th, you have a sign, big sign, right across from the U.S. Vets place. Yeah. How many signs do you have around town?
About 30. I'm going to have about 15 billboards up. I don't know how many.
Okay. So Richard Scotti is a very important person. He's very important for the legal system in California and Nevada. The direction where things might be 20 years from now. For our students who have been here that are working on projects, this fits into our SPQR project, which is for getting people to participate in the process. So in this country, we elect our representatives. The problem is a large percentage of people don't vote. Those are the politically alienated. And if you don't vote, the people who win, the representatives, do what they want. So you can't really complain that the system isn't working for you if you don't vote. So one of the things that we do here is we want everybody to understand civics, and we want people to focus on voting for the person, not the party. And in your election, it's non-party, right?
Correct. Nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan. So that's an interesting thing. Certain elected positions are not partisan. It's not. Richard isn't running as a Democrat for this or as a Republican for a judge.
Running as a judge.
He's running for a judge as a judge position. Again, but most of the people think in terms of Democrat and Republican, right? Right. In terms of voting. We don't want you to think that way. So without any further ado, Richard is going to come up. He's going to talk about important civics issues, why it is important to vote, how the system works. And please take notes, and the expectation is going to be that everybody is going to have at least one question to ask. And then we'll start with Rob. Come on up. Richard. We'll start with Rob doing the introductions. So that gives you an
Set the camera for California.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, hi everybody.
Okay. Rob's we're going to introduce themselves.
Great. My name is Rob Felton. I'm from Minneapolis, and I'm at Casa Grande.
Right.
Terry McCumber. I'm from Pennsylvania. My name is Michael Hamilton from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm from Casa Grande.
Daniel Ferdinando from Monterey, California.
Guerrero from California. My cousin.
What part of California?
Los Angeles.
What part of LA?
West Los Angeles.
What part of West Los Angeles? Okay, we have somebody here from West Los Angeles, people in California, just so you know.
That's a good area.
See, they're happy.
I'm Richard Scotti from Las Vegas, Cosmetics.
Nice to meet you.
Jonathan King from Oceanside, California, and I'm a customer.
Nice to meet you.
William Hendricks, Northdale, North Carolina, and I'm at Genesis.
My name is Ron Walker. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I reside at Casa Grande.
I'm Norman from Tucson, Arizona, and I'm staying at Genesis.
I'm James Romero, and I'm from Colorado, and I stay at Genesis.
I'm Mark Thiessen from Madera, California.
Excellent.
I'm Otis Burst from Gary, Indiana, and I currently reside in Capsule Civics.
All right. How tall are you? Otis?
6'8".
James County Pajak. I'm from Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, and I stay at Yokewood.
Where are you looking to go there?
I'm Horace Neal. I'm from Los Angeles, California, South Central area, and I'm
El Central.
All
right.
I'm Nicholas Moran, and I'm also in Yokewood.
Okay. Jess Parker from Seal Beach, and I'm transition.
I'm Matt Tyler from Utah, and also in Yokewood.
I'm Rich from Las Vegas, and I'm in Casa Grande.
I'm Ron Henderson, Illinois, Chicago. Nice to meet you also.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Catholic Charities, by the way.
All right, great. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Eagle Borrego, McAllen, Texas.
Go ahead.
I'm Flynn. I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, and I'm from Newport.
All right. Hi.
I'm born and raised Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, and I lived in California for about 14 years, and I came to Las Vegas. I'm staying at the Strip 3 because of the domestic violence case. I am wanting so much to get back to the mainstream life, so I would rather to be free than to be abused. That was the sweet people.
Very good. Thank you for telling us, and good luck to you. Yes, sir.
My name is Aristotle Mason. I'm from East LA, California.
All right. East LA. All right. Very good. Sir.
Hi, I'm Jude Charlo. I'm at Charities, and I'm here to get it about.
Okay.
Keith Burrows from Orange County, California, and I'm also a customer.
All right. Great. Well, welcome everybody. So I'm Richard Scotti. I've lived in many of the places you all have too. I was actually born in Inglewood, California, and raised in Carson, California until I was about 12 or 13, and then I got relocated up to Fresno near Madera, and went to see after high school. I went back down. Appreciate being here. Those of you from Catholic Charities, I'd like to volunteer my time there. I think it's a great. They're doing a lot of great work there, and thank you for your work there too as well. So, and welcome to those in California. So, what we're doing here today is we're going to talk a little bit about civics, particularly your rights and responsibilities as a citizen. And more focused, we're going to talk about why it's important to vote and the process for voting. The place to begin for all that, though, of course, is the starting point for your responsibilities and your rights is the United States Constitution. And we've handed that out. You should all have a copy. For those of you in California, I have several more copies I'm going to bring in and give to one of the instructors here, and they'll be glad to bring those down to you. We're going to spend a little bit of time initially going through the Constitution, understanding its components. And it's a pretty simple document. It's only about 4,000 words. It's one of the shortest written constitutions in the history of the world. It survived for over a couple hundred years, and it's still the document which guides our entire system of government. And it has principles that we need to make sure that we understand what they are and how they work, and we're going to go through that just a little bit. And after that, I'm going to talk to you about the different positions that you get to vote for that are established by the Constitution. And then we're going to look at the legislative positions, the executive positions, the judiciary positions, and there's some at the
federal court level, and then there's some at the state court level. And then after that, we're going to talk just a little bit about the process of registering and going in to vote. So that's the roadmap of what I'd like to do this morning. First, I want to read something to you. If you all have the Constitution in front of you, if you could please turn to page, what page do we want to turn to? VI, I guess that's Roman numeral 6. VI. At the top it'll say educating the people. Are we all there? Yes. All right, great. Let's go down to like the paragraph that says say. I think it's the 4th paragraph. I'm going to read that. This is Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers. He wrote the Declaration of Independence, and this is what he wrote when they were trying to convince everybody the importance of the Constitution and why we should sign this document. He says, say whether peace is best preserved by giving energy to the government or information to the people. This last is the most certain and the most legitimate engine of government. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. Enable them to see that it is in their interest to preserve peace and order, and they will preserve them. And it requires no very high degree of education to convince them of this. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. What our founding father is saying here is that one of the great purposes of government is to help educate the people, to make sure they understand our form of government so they can have a vested interest in protecting it. And so I think teaching civics is part of government's responsibility. It's part of the government's responsibility to make sure that we all can become productive members of society and vote in society, because voting affects transportation laws, criminal laws, controlled substances, discrimination in the workplace, labor hours, minimum wage, what parks and recreation we're going to have, what your taxes are going to be like. Voting affects education. Whether kindergarten children have half-day or all-day kindergarten, how many teachers we have, whether we're going to allow collective bargaining to help empower the less fortunate. These are all the types of issues that come up every day in elections, and that's why it's so important to vote. And if you don't exercise your right to vote, what right do you have to complain about the problems in society? Do you know, in our last primary election, just in June, only 25% of the people voted. I think that's pathetic.
It's generous too.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'm generous, but it was very poor, and we're expecting only 50% turnout for the general election coming up November 4th. And let me give you some perspective on why it's so important to vote, because elections are often very close. And I'm going to tell you some of the historically close elections here that we've had in Nevada. Back in 1998, this was the U.S. Senate race. Senator Harry Reid beat John Ensign by only 428 votes. That was a statewide election. And the whole state, he won by 428 votes. Let's see. In 2008, State Senate District 5, Joe Heck lost to Breeden by 765 votes. Let's see, here's the closest one. Henderson Mayor, just a few years ago, 2009. Steve Kirk lost to the current mayor in Henderson, Andy Hafen, by 45 votes. 45 votes. All right, 2010, District Court Judge race. Dabney lost to Kishner by 1,000 votes. And then, of course, we have the most famous close election of all time in 2000 for U.S. president. George Bush and Al Gore were fighting over those last electoral votes that they needed in Florida. Whoever was going to get the Florida electoral votes was going to win the presidency. You all remember the big fight over the Florida electoral votes. Well, they decided that George Bush apparently had 437 more votes than Al Gore in Florida. These things are very close. You got to get out and vote, exercise your rights, because you gotta remember, if only 25% of the people are voting, your vote effectively counts like it's 4 people, because it's 4 times more powerful if only 1/4 of the people are voting. So it's very powerful rights. So please exercise those rights to vote. So let's look at the Constitution then and see what type of government it establishes and who you're going to be voting for. And you can take a pen and kind of I'm going to give you some labels to write down on these sections of the Constitution. Turn to page 1. The bottom right-hand corner. It says Constitution of the United States. In the first paragraph, that's the preamble. This is the basic explanation why our government was formed. I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourself, but very, very powerful words. But right after that, Article 1. Article 1 is the entire section dealing with the legislative branch. So if you wanted to write the word legislature, this establishes the legislature, Article 1. And we're not going to read anything from Article 1, but you see it just goes on about 6 pages, 7 pages. And what is our legislature? Well, we have a Congress. A Congress is divided into 2 parts. One part is the Senate, and the other part is the House of Representatives. Exactly. In what was called the Great Compromise, our founding fathers decided that we would have 2 different branches. One branch would be the Senate, where each state gets 2 votes. Everybody has two senators. And who can name who our senators are here in Nevada?
Harry Reid.
Harry Reid is one of them, and we have one more, right? No, Joe Heck is a congressman, but you're close. It's Senator Heller. Heller is our second. Dean Heller, right? So we got two senators. Now so at each state, there's 50 states. Each have 2 senators. There's a total of 100 members of the Senate. That's the one branch. Every state has equal representation. Now our founding fathers said we're going to have a second branch of government, which is going to be called the House of Representatives. And each state gets a representative based upon how many people it has. So the states that have more people get more representatives, right? And so by the Constitution, there's a total of 435 representatives. That never changes. But as population shifts around the country, sometimes the number of your representatives change. Nevada used to have 3. Now we have 4 because we're growing. Some other states back east, they've lost some population, so they've lost their number of representatives.
Do you know how many California has?
55, or 53, I believe. Right. Because I think they have 55 electoral votes, so 2 of those are the Senate. So, yeah, so California has a ton. So we have 4. One of them is Joe Heck. One is Dina Tinus. One is Horsford, and one is Amity from up north. Those are our congressmen. When you go to vote, you get an opportunity to vote for your senator and your congressman. Now, it just so happens this year there's no vote for Senate. Senate serves terms of 6 years, and they get voted in on staggered years. There's just no one up for Senate this time. The House of Representatives here in Nevada does have a position up for Senate District, Congressional District number 3. That's Joe Heck. Joe Heck is running against, anybody know? Aaron Bilbray, right? So that's an important choice that you have to make because they have political ideologies and they're from different political parties. And if you live in their district, it's a different, whole different thinking on how they're going to vote, right? So you should research, and if you live in Congressional District 3, you can vote for them. Now, let me Senate, you vote for, when a Senate position is up, you vote for the senator no matter where you live. When the Congressional District position is up, you only vote if you live in that district. So if you live in, North Las Vegas, for instance, is not part of Congressional District 3.
They're split in the middle of the city, right?
Yeah, I think
like counties.
Exactly.
Similar.
Exactly, and one of the congressional districts is way up north and only touches on a very small portion of Las Vegas. So let's move on from Article 1. Article 1 then was the legislature. Let's go on to Article 2, which is the executive. That's on page 9. So you can write down the word executive under Article 2. This whole section establishes the office of president, and it establishes the powers of the president. And it also allows the president to appoint members of the Nevada Supreme Court. And yes, sir?
Would you say write down?
Oh, write down executive. Okay. Executive. That's Article 2 is executive. Now, have you all heard of the Electoral College? All right, let me just explain a little bit for some of you who don't. You know, first of all, our form of government. Some people say, well, we're a democracy. Some people say, no, we're a republic. And the truth is that we're really a combination. A pure democracy is mob rule. And we're not a pure democracy. A pure democracy would be if the sheriff has someone locked up and the group of people in town vote they shouldn't be locked up. We're just going to take them back. You know, that's mob rule. Or you know, a lynching. That's mob rule. We have a system of government which is a democratic republic. We all get together, the populace get together and vote for our elected representatives. And then our elected representatives go to Congress to represent us. And they do so under a system of laws. Our system of laws ensures that we do not control society based upon mere popular vote, because there's certain civil rights that are guaranteed by Congress and guaranteed by our Constitution, certain fundamental rights. We need to make sure that the rights of the minorities are protected. We need to make sure certain rights that exist by the mere fact that we're free men living on Earth, trying to get along in civil society. There's certain rights that each of us have and that belong to us that should not be overturned by mob rule. A mob shouldn't just be able to come to me and say, well, Mr. Scotti, I like those shoes. We voted, we're going to take those shoes. Well, that would violate my property rights. So there are rights that are protected that by the Constitution. Those are called fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are mostly stated in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. Most of those are in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Those are called the Bill of Rights. So, so I guess what I was trying to say there is we're either a constitutional republic, is what some people call our form of government. Some people call our form of government a democratic republic. All right, which is a combination of democracy and a republic, which is the election of representatives to represent us, which is a system that we inherited from Imperial Rome several thousand years ago. Our founding fathers studied that system and decided that it was one that we wanted to emulate here in our United States. So let's move on a little bit. Let's go to Article 3, page 12. Article 3 is judiciary. So write down judiciary there. That's the third branch of government. So our government has 3 branches. We've just covered them. We have the legislative branch, we have the executive branch, and now we have the judiciary branch. Yes, sir.
I was going to say one of them. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were trying to argue.
All right.
We were trying to answer.
All right, good. So those are the 3 branches. Now, the judiciary, this is talking about the federal judiciary. The federal judiciary includes a United States Supreme Court, right? United States Supreme Court. And our United States Supreme Court, those positions are filled by the president with the consent of the Senate. And those members of that judiciary, the United States Supreme Court, serve for life. Once they're appointed, they can only be removed by impeachment, which is a very difficult process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or they quit or die, right? Right. Now, there's also a federal judiciary, the lower courts. Those are called the federal courts. We have the Federal Court of Appeals, and then we have the District Court. All those positions are also filled by appointment by the President with the consent of the Senate. Those positions are filled for life also. Now contrast that with state court judges here in Nevada, which are elected. You see, our founding fathers thought that there was a benefit in not having the people vote for the federal judges, but having the president appoint the federal judges. But they left it up to the states to decide for themselves what they want to do. Does anyone have a comment on whether you think the appointment process is better or the election process is better? Yes, sir.
I think the appointment process is better, considering we did a comparison with our governmental structure versus the majority going on in China.
That's certainly a very wise view shared by a lot of people. Appointment process is better. Some people say that it should be by the people. The people should have the opportunity to determine who are going to be the judges deciding their fate. Yes, sir.
Going back to the successful question.
Yes.
Does that have anything to do with the judges getting the power pretty much to become a mandatory minimum sort of situations where the power is out of their hands to really do it?
I see what you're saying. Our judges are not policymakers. They leave it up to the legislature, our state Senate, state assembly to determine penalties for crimes. And a lot of times judges are given discretion on what penalties to apply to a particular crime. What you as a people have the right to do is if you see a judge is being too harsh, or a judge is being too lenient, or judges as in the past that are requiring their bailiffs to give them massages. We had a problem with the judge doing that, right? Right. If you see judges that are out of line, out of touch, or not following the basic common sense and will of the people, you have an opportunity to vote them out. All right, and so that's one reason why you might want to retain the opportunity to vote. The problem is, guys, is not enough people are voting. And when people go in to vote, how many of you people know? Because I don't know all the different judges that are running. Do you know when the primary came around, we had over 130 people running for judge? 130?
How many positions?
Well, let me tell you, there's. You probably have seen a lot of signs out there, right? Do we need more signs out there on the road? No. Probably not. No more signs. Some of the signs you'll see for judge will say judge, family court, and in some department with a letter. If you have a letter A through T, that's family court. All the letters are family court. And there's 20 different positions. A few of them don't have opponents, so maybe about 16 positions that are up. All right, so that's 16 times 2 people running. That's 32 people running for judge, just family court. All right. Now in district court's the general jurisdiction. All right, so you have family court here, and here you have general jurisdiction. And the general jurisdiction is divided up into civil and criminal. Some courts are all civil, it's contract, personal injury stuff. Some courts are all criminal, all felonies and misdemeanors. And some courts are half and half. So there's 32 of those. 32 of those, all right? And so 32 times 2, that's 64 people running. Now, again, several of those are not contested, meaning that the judge is in there already. He didn't get an opponent, and so he gets a free pass.
He's going to win, yeah.
All right? No one should ever get a free pass, right? I think you should always challenge the incumbent. So anyway, you got maybe 25 and 50, 34, or you have about 50 different positions open. So 100 different people. And that's just the judiciary. That doesn't include all the county positions. That doesn't include all the constitutional officers, governor, lieutenant governor, controller, treasurer, secretary of state, attorney general. You get all those decisions. I personally think it's too much to ask our people, the people, to decide. Does anyone have a thought on that? Yeah.
One of the, some of them are uncontested. I was thinking of I see a sign, and I think running for commissioner, and the last name is Bonaventure, but that's not the famous judge.
Right.
That person's going to make it in there just because of the name.
Yeah, that happens, and I'll fully admit that there were times early on in my career I didn't know who I was voting for, and I would just take recommendations of friends, and sometimes the friends were giving me a recommendation just based upon someone's name. That's not a way to run a democracy, right? That's not a way to ensure that we get qualified people. Now, there are ways to find out about these judges that are running. One of the ways is to look at the endorsements. The Review Journal sometimes has information about the judges. Each of the judges have websites. You can go to their websites. You can also Google Martindale Hubbell, which is an organization that will give you the biographies of the judge, where they went to school, have they published any papers, where they currently work. So there's various sources, but it's difficult. It's very difficult. And I just throw that out to you as one of the issues that you're going to be facing in your generation, in your lifetime, is should judges be appointed rather than elected? No. So, yes, sir. Someone have a question?
No,
Nope.
I'm agreeing with, I think they should be elected.
Well, I can't resolve it, and I'm running for judge, which means I don't want to resolve it. I don't want to be a policymaker. I'll follow the law.
Yeah.
You guys tell me what the law is. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to Article 4, page 14. All right, Article 4, page 14. You can just write down at the very top miscellaneous terms. That's what this is. Article 4 is just miscellaneous. I'm just going to tell you a couple of these important miscellaneous terms. Section 1. And you could write down here at the top of Section 1, full faith and credit. Full faith and credit. And what that means is when we were formed as a country, United States of America, we were formed with sovereign states. States that have a lot of independent power. But our government would only work as if we worked together. So one of the things our founders decided is that if there's a judgment against somebody in one state, the other states have to recognize that judgment. The person can't escape justice by going to another state. Person can't escape his debts by going to another state. Person can't, escape his obligations that have already been established by going to another state. So that's called full faith and credit. One state has to recognize the laws of judgments of another state. Section 2, the second paragraph, that's your extradition provision. This is the one that says, if you were convicted and you flee, the state has to turn you over. Another important one. Let's go to the second page, Section 4. This is called the Guarantee Clause. And I'll just read the beginning. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion. And that has nothing to do with the Republican Party. Don't confuse that. This is Republican form of government, which is Republican came from the term res publica, which means people's affair, which came from Italy. What this means is our federal government has a duty to ensure that every state in the country has the right to exist as a democratic republic, meaning a state can't have a monarch, has to be governed by rules of law, and that its decisions are made by basically popular vote, that we all get to vote for our representatives. So let's continue on just a little bit here. Article 5, do you see that? Article 5 on page 15. All that deals with is how do you make amendments to the Constitution. So just write down the word amendments on Article 5.
We're going to keep these.
You get to keep those, yeah. Article 6. Article 6, this is just about the Supremacy Clause. So write down Supremacy Clause. What that means is the laws of the United States are supreme. If the United States makes a law, our Congress makes a law, it's not vetoed by the President, that's the supreme law, and that supersedes any state law. Interestingly enough, a big issue now is there's a federal law that prohibits not just recreational, but medicinal use of marijuana. Nevada has now legalized that. So that's an inconsistency. So technically, the federal law controls under the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution, but there's a lot of internal discussions about whether the federal government should now change that law given changing cultural norms and trends in society. But that would just be an example. And when the federal government says the speed limit on national highways is 55 miles an hour, a state can't come in and say, no, we're gonna say it's 65 miles an hour.
But Nevada is higher than the national average. When you're way out in the desert,
yeah,
it's 75.
Yeah, well, the government does give some discretion to the states, but I'm saying if they say on all national highways we're going to make it 55, the state can't go against that. That's the Supremacy Clause. So let's go on then to the very last section, Article 7. Article 7 is the provision on how this document becomes the governing document. It's called ratification. So write down the word ratification. All right, when our 13 states wanted to get together to decide on the new form of government, and remember we had 13 colonies, actually only 12 showed up. My recollection is Rhode Island never showed up to the Constitutional Convention. And so you'll see here, you'll see all the different states that signed the Constitution. Rhode Island's not there. Now, they all signed it, and they said, okay, we're going to send this out to the states to ratify. Every state gets a chance to read it now and decide if they want it and ratify it, and if at least 9 states ratify it, it will become the law of the land. Well, it turns out that it was, in fact, unanimously ratified by every single state. Rhode Island came around and eventually did decide to ratify it. And so when our Constitution was signed, that was September 17, 1787. That date's been important in our history. It's been recognized as Constitution Day. And it's coming up pretty soon here. So so I think is it a federal holiday? You'll have to tell me. Okay. September 17, 1787 is Constitution Day. Now, it wasn't until a few years later that it was signed by everybody. And then the Bill of Rights, many of the states said, we're not going to sign unless you put in protections for our personal freedoms. We want the states to be protected and the people to be protected from federal tyranny or a government that's going to grow too big or a government that's going to take away our rights. And so they adopted the Bill of Rights, which has certain protections like the First Amendment, Second Amendment, free speech, firearms, due process, search and seizure. And so a lot of states agreed to sign based on that guarantee that the Bill of Rights would be adopted, and the Bill of Rights was adopted in 1791. Now, I think let's just run through the Bill of Rights really quick. You can read these on your own. I just want to make sure you all know where to find certain of your rights. Turn to page 21. 21. Okay. Amendment 1, you can just write this down. This is free speech and religion. Those are the main rights guaranteed there. Amendment number 2, this is, you just put down gun rights. Amendment number 3, this is on quartering. Not something we really have to worry about anymore, but the colonists didn't like the king requiring that homeowners and residents had to allow the soldiers to come stay at their homes. They needed a place to stay, and so quartering is not allowed in times of peace. Government can't force you to open up your house to the National Guard or the military to come stay there.
But they can during time of war.
During emergencies and time of war, yes.
So what's an emergency?
Well, why don't we discuss that later? Okay. Amendment 4. This is search and seizure. The government. This is the big one. The government cannot engage in unreasonable searches and seizures, and there's been many Supreme Court cases interpreting that.
Right.
Amendment 5. That's called due process. Due process means you have an opportunity to have notice and an opportunity to present your side of the case before your rights are taken away from you.
Can't be tried twice.
Can't be tried twice. Another thing, if you are the Department of Motor Vehicles wants to take away your driver's license, they can't do it arbitrarily. You're entitled to know why do they want to take away your license, and you have a chance to present your side of the story. That's an example of due process. Amendment 6. This is basically the rights of the accused. If you're accused of a criminal crime, these are all of your rights. Yeah. Amendment 7. So 6, write down accused rights. Amendment 7, write down jury trial. All right. Amendment 8. No cruel and unusual punishments. You can write that down. Let me know if I'm going too fast. No cruel and unusual punishment. Amendment 8. We're only going to go up to 10 here. The next 2 ensure that the government is not going to continue to grow and take over everything. So Amendment 9 basically says other rights remain. In other words, just because we don't mention a right doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So it leaves it open. Yes, sir.
Number 9 is what?
Number 9, other rights remain. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Finally, Amendment 10 is states' rights. What that says is, if we don't give a power to the federal government, then that power remains with the state. Right? The federal government only has the powers that we give it in this Constitution. I'm going to tell you one more thing because it comes up a lot. You probably often hear people saying, well, the Congress can't do that because it's not constitutional. You hear that the Tea Party say that a lot, and then you got another side saying, well, the Congress does have that authority. So a lot of times you'll hear, you can't do that, it's not constitutional. Well, what do people mean when they say that? What they generally mean is the legislature, our Congress. People use the term Congress to refer to both the Senate and the House. They're saying, Congress, there's nothing in the Constitution that gives you that power. So where would you look to see if they have the power? And I'll tell you where it is. It's Article 1. Remember, we just discussed the legislature. So turn back to page 1. And then you see it has Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. Go all the way up to Section 8. Section 8, page 6. All right? This is one of the most important and most talked about clauses of the Constitution. This is called the enumeration clause. Section 8 on page 6, the enumeration clause. This is the enumeration, the listing of all the powers that our Congress has. Some of them are pretty narrow, like the right to coin money. Some of them are pretty broad, like the right to regulate commerce. That one right there, the right to regulate commerce, is one that was used to justify, in part, Obamacare. And also it's one that was used to justify federal laws prohibiting the possession of marijuana. Even if you want to have your own plant in your own house for your own use, the Congress has interpreted the right to regulate commerce as going so far as to reach goods or things that could be goods that are in your own home. So it has been interpreted very expansively in some instances. Yes, sir, you had a question?
Yeah, this is saying Section 8 in Article 1.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And it begins, the Congress shall have the power to. So that's one that's often the subject of many great debates by our legislature and Congress and the Supreme Court. So let me move on to what you're going to see on your ballot. Have any of you voted yet? Has anyone here voted before?
Oh, yeah.
Many of you. Okay, great. And so you're familiar with the electronic voting process. All right. And for those of you who haven't voted yet, let me just give you a little bit of background. It's really easy to register. You can go to the Clark County Elections Department to register in person, or you can even go on the website and register. And yes, sir.
What about identification? Has that been clarified? I haven't reported some.
Yeah, you generally, if you're registering for the first time, there's certain requirements. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be at least you're 18 years of age, or you're going to be 18 years of age at the time that you're voting. You need to present some form of identifying who you are the very first time. That could be driver's license, it could be a state identification card, it could be a utility bill, it could be a social security card. You need to be able to identify yourself in some way the first time, but then when you go to vote after that, you don't need identification. If you voted before, you can just show up, say who you are, and they just make you write your name down to where you wrote your name last time, and you're free to vote. All right? Yes, sir.
I went to register online last Friday, and I put my address, and then I put that it was where you're staying now. I did both ways. I used my current address, so I can still get mail there.
Okay.
And once at school, and it said no, I can't do that. It showed my signature on my license, and so then I put general delivery because I'm staying in Charities, and it's still denied. I don't know if it's because I'm a two-time felon or what.
Well, there are certain, if you're a felon, then you have to have your voting rights restored in order to be able to vote, and there's complicated rules on that.
And who does that?
And I'm not sure that what's the courts. In some instances, you can just file a petition with the courts. Some instances, I believe you can do it online, and it depends on the class of felony. It depends on whether you had parole or probation. Depends on whether you satisfactorily completed. I don't want to get into all that. It's a pretty complicated area. I'm sure your instructors can help you with that. So registering to vote is a really easy process. You can do it online. You can do it in person. All right. Now, when you register, you have some choices on which party you want to belong to. You can belong to the Republican Party. You can belong to the Democrat Party. Now, the third most popular party in Nevada is the Independent American Party. Independent American Party. That's it's not an independent party. It's an actual party. They think a lot like the libertarians with a strong belief in God, right? Then after that, so that's the IAC, and then or IAP. Then after that, you have the Libertarian Party, all right? And after the Libertarian Party, then you would have the Green Party, and there's a couple other parties. And then finally, you have the opportunity to just register as nonpartisan. If you truly want to be independent, you would select nonpartisan as your party affiliation. Now, when you go to vote, sometimes you vote in primaries, sometimes you vote in general elections. Does everyone understand the difference? Right? Okay.
Primaries are going to have to face another election to make it, right?
Primaries are generally the first step. If you have a political party that has multiple people running, say the Democrats have 3 different people that are running for State Senate District 5, and the Republican Party has 3 people running for State Senate District 5, there's a primary to narrow it down to 1 for each person. So the primary narrows it down to 1 person for each side, and then you have the general election where you actually choose between those people. So here's what you're going to vote for. You're going to see a huge ballot when you go to vote this November 4th. And actually, early voting starts October 18th. All right? There's 3 ways of voting. Early voting, which means you can go to the mall or see those trailers, different places, and you can just go in and vote. You can do an absentee vote, which means you can request that you get your ballot in the mail and fill it out and mail it back if you believe you're not going to be around in time to use one of the other means. Or you can vote the traditional way on election day. So here's what your ballot's going to look like. You're going to have some ballot initiatives. You probably heard about ballot initiative number 1, which is to establish an appellate court. I don't know what number 2 is, but number 3 is the has a couple of different names: the education initiative or the margins tax. It has 2 different names. So that's ballot initiative number 3. So you're going to have those initiatives. Then after that, you have what's called the constitutional offices. That's your governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. That's the chief law enforcement officer in the state. You have the treasurer and controller. The controller is the person who accounts for all the money, and the treasurer is the one who invests the money in the state. All right. You have Secretary of State, who handles a lot of business filings and supervises the election department. So those are your constitutional offices. Then you're also going to be voting for, remember we talked about the legislative branch in Congress? Well, we have a kind of a legislature here in the state. We have the Senate and the Assembly. And you're going to be voting, depending on where you live, for your state senators. And you're going to be voting for state assemblymen. All right. You're also going to be voting for, so that's the legislature here in Nevada. Now you're also going to be voting for judges. Judges are now elected every 6 years. Used to be that we would stagger them, have some every 2 years. They put everybody on the same plane now. Some judges complained that the legislature would increase salaries in the middle of their term, and if you're already in office, you can't get that raise. But then the new people coming in were getting the raises. And so they complained about that, and they just said everyone's going to be on the same track. Everybody starts the same and ends the same. I think so, and then you're going to be voting for justice court judges. Those are lower than the district court judges that we've been discussing. Those justice court judges handle county issues that are less than $10,000. Municipal court judges are city judges that are also lower court judges that you're not going to see on your ballot. Those are in odd number years. Those are basically the positions. I used up probably more time than your educator expected. Is there any time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions?
Please, can you explain the difference on the charge with what they're trying to prosecute you when you go? Sometimes you go to justice court, sometimes you go to municipal court. What's the difference?
Well, municipal court generally city violations, and justice court are generally county violations. That's the simplest answer there.
Depending on where you committed the crime.
Depending on where you committed the crime. Yeah. Hi.
Why is it that you want to be a judge and what's your goal?
Oh wow. What? Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to be campaigning or political here. Look, I want to be a judge because I understand the law, and based on my experience, I know how to run a courtroom. I've served as a Supreme Court settlement judge, and I've served as an administrative law judge and as an arbitrator for the Supreme Court foreclosure mediation program. I helped a lot of people save their homes in fighting with banks on defaulted mortgages. But my goal, look, what I want to do is I've been fighting my whole life to try to make sure people understand their legal rights, to make sure that those legal rights are readily available to them. I would like to see, I know we have all these specialty courts. We don't have a pro bono court. We need to establish a pro bono court where we help individuals come in and plead their case and have justice determined without having to hire an expensive lawyer. We don't, justice shouldn't depend upon who can hire the most expensive lawyer. Right, so that's one of the things. Access to justice is one. Another goal of mine is improving professionalism among attorneys. It's a profession that's sickened by unruly lawyers.
What court are you trying to get?
I'm running for district court, which is, like I said, the general jurisdiction court, half civil, half criminal.
Okay.
I'm running for Department 2. Actually, if you want to see my name, when you get to the judge section, I'll be the very first person on the ballot. Scotti, Department 2. Okay. It'll be easy to find me. I've taught Constitution to mostly 5th graders, so this is more challenging to me to come in here and talk to you guys. A lot more challenging. Yeah. But I've talked to 5th graders about the Constitution. I really enjoy helping to serve the public and help people understand their rights. Yes, sir. Let's go on the gentleman in the back first. Yeah, no, that's you.
Oh, okay,
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, will you be sentencing people like in criminal court, or are you just going to do civil or just criminal?
I'll do well. When I get in there, the chief judge will determine what my caseload is going to be. It could be half civil, half criminal. It could be all civil. All right. So, I mean, I want to do both. It's up to the chief judge.
You think if we ever stand in front of you, that you'll remember us?
I think so. I think maybe Dad will give me your names. But let me tell you. The most important thing is appearing before a judge is be polite and respectful. A judge. Look, a judge has some discretion. All right, and the judge has discretion because we don't want a system where a judge just mechanically applies the law. If that was the case, we just have a computer up there. Plug in the facts, plug in the sentence, and spit it out. A judge needs to have compassion, right? A judge needs to understand that we're dealing with humanity, with human lives, and everybody makes mistakes. And everybody deserves a second chance. A lot of people deserve a second chance. I was a strong proponent of the Veterans Court. I think for non-violent crimes committed by veterans, we need to work hard to give them a second chance. It's hard to come back here and readjust into society after the difficult conditions that they faced. And for giving us for protecting this document, protecting our rights to be here and become good members of society, right? And so there's other circumstances like that. Drug users deserve a second chance under certain circumstances. Children. There's all kinds of situations where we can do better. Yes, yes, sir. You cut them off whenever. Oh,
Norm had a question right here.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
I was just questioning. You talked about how the president has the power for the Supreme Court to appoint, and I feel maybe the citizens should have more of an effort into that instead, because I just don't know the executive order deal, all that kind of thing kind of messes me up.
Yeah. So it's with the Supreme Court. Let me tell you, right now we have indirect role in who gets selected as our Supreme Court justices, right? The president selects, right? But the president needs to get 50% consent by the Senate.
Still has to be confirmed.
Has to be confirmed by the Senate, right? And so you can go to your state senator, Senator Reed, Senator Heller, and say, Senator, I don't want this person to become a federal judge. You got to vote against this person. You get enough people in your state, then you can convince your senator to say no, and then he's going to go back to Washington, D.C. and try to convince his colleagues to say no. So you have indirect control for that.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
One quick question. Last name spelling of yours?
Oh, Scotti, S-C-O-T-T-I, Italian. That's why I met this guy at the Italian American Club a couple years ago.
Was District 2, correct?
Department 2. Department 2. And Department 2, yeah. Department 2 is all of Clark County. No matter where you live in Clark County, you get to vote for the judges. Right? It's county-wide positions. The department is just for case assignment purposes. Okay? Department really doesn't mean anything.
No.
I noticed early onset of your introduction classes.
Yes, sir.
That you like to do a lot of volunteer services. Are there reciprocated, or you have volunteers come in like a street team and put this, go ahead and sign up there? Because billboards attract certain people, but a lot of people are on the highways and byways of Nevada. So,
yeah, I'm actually, thanks for mentioning that, I'm actually in process of having some signs made up, and 3x6 signs. I'm going to put those up around town on my campaign that I say.
Almost within the next 30-ish days.
Probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'm getting those ordered right now. So you're exactly right. I wanted to have those up. Those get vandalized and stolen a lot more quickly, and that's why you want to wait till the last minute to put those up.
So if I stole one, would you sign it?
Well, if you got 10 votes for me, I'll sign it. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Cedric Kearns. Yes. I know him casually, but not friends or anything. But yeah, how do you know?
He's my judge.
Oh, okay, great. Great. Did you do okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's paying my rent so I could go to the school.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Well, you guys need to congratulate yourselves for. Some of you are here voluntarily, some are not voluntarily. Congratulate yourselves for your dedication and becoming productive members of society and remaining productive members and becoming an informed voter. An informed voter gives you the opportunity to ensure that society remains, peaceful and stable and secure, and that your rights are protected. So thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, where's the book? Oh.
Okay, so Sherry and I have to sign this too. But This is a book that everybody gets. You have to earn it here. And we focus on being able to remember, retain new knowledge. And the way we do it is by memorizing things. And we start out with stuff like this.
Oh, nice.
Okay,
yeah.
And then we get up to, this is what we did last week.
Oh, wow.
So you write
poetry.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then Mark Antony's speech,
Oh, that's very
Hamlet's
cool.
soliloquy,
Wow.
Rudyard Kipling, just all of the great
Very
stuff.
intense.
So this is a book for you, and now if we can go outside and get a picture taken too.
I'd be honored to have a picture with you all. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, so let's go outside.
We haven't signed it back.
Okay, so we'll.
Thank you.
Whoa, man. No.
Yes.